What's going on, SC430 community? My name is Henry. Today's video, I'm going to be doing an oil change on the SC430. Surprisingly, out of all the videos I've made, don't think I've done an oil change one. Don't know why, but we're going to do it today for this video, just so I have it on record. The amount of oil the SC430 takes on all years is going to be 5.5 quarts. I'm going to be using 5W30, so be aware that that Lexus recommends to put 5W30 in the SC430, but some cases, depending on the weather where you live at, you might need to use a different type of oil due to the viscosity of the oil. Arizona, just because it's hotter, sometimes you might want to go different. But I've been staying consistent, and I don't really drive it in the summers anyway. It just kind of sits. So in the cooler weathers, it's not like super severe that you have to change the oil. So I'm doing 5W30 because that's recommended. And then for the oil filter, make sure you get the right size. I'm going with K&N, so that's HP-1002. If you're trying to do K&N like myself, again, don't have to use K&N, but that's just what I went with. Tools you're going to need is a 10mm socket and ratchet. That's if you have the undercarriage on the SC430. I do, so I'm going to have to take that out, unfortunately, to get to the oil filter. And then you're definitely going to need a 14mm socket to take the oil cap or the bolt for to the oil pan out. And then obviously the tools you need to jack up the car and put it on jack stands, right? And then in case, let's say I can't get the oil filter out by hand, we do have this tool right here to readjust as needed to make sure I can get a grip on that oil filter to get it out. Hopefully we don't need to use this, but you can if you need to. Do recommend doing oil changes pretty often, especially with these cars. Only reason because it's kind of a seasonal car to drive. It's not a daily for me. So since it's not a daily, you don't really have to do the oil change often. But obviously keep an eye on the coloring of the oil. The darker the color is, the worse it is. So make sure you swap out the oil when needed. I think for me, I'm at, I think since my last oil change, I want to say I'm over 5,000, in between 5 and 10,000 miles, I think. So I'm going to be swapping mine out just because I checked the coloring and I'm like, might as well change it out. But for someone that drives the SC430, maybe not as much as I do, maybe you could try to push 20,000 miles without an oil change. But obviously, if you want your engine to be super healthy, you want to keep it that nice kind of yellowish color, because you don't want that black and brown coloring. So it's really up to you when you want to do an oil change. Just make sure you don't do it too late, and then obviously you don't want to do it too early because then you're just throwing money away. But mainly you got to make sure you have enough oil in it and it's the right coloring and consistency. If your oil is brown, you might want to take a look into coolant issues, because that means there might be coolant leaking into the engine where it's not supposed to be, causing the coolant and the oil to mix, and it'll turn into like a chocolate milk looking color. You don't want that. But anyways, I'm gonna start by jacking up the car, and then I'll show you what I gotta take out underneath. Okay, underneath the car, I'm on the passenger side. If you want to know where to jack up the car, it might be a little bit difficult to see, but see where my finger's at. So see the edge of my finger tip? That's the oil pan. And then where the jack stand is, just behind it, is the subframe. You can jack it up right there, and then jack it up as much as you need to make sure you can get the jacks in the appropriate spot. You want to know where to properly put the jack stands? Underneath here. See how there's a divot right here? And then a divot on the other side. Where's it? Right there. You want to make sure you put the jack in between those divots for both sides. And then we can start doing stuff underneath. Pop the hood already, so just gonna open that up. Here's the oil that you're gonna have to use for the SC. If you want to know how I knew what oil to put in, repair manual says that, owner's manual is going to say it, and the cap's going to say that. So make sure you use the right oil when appropriate. So now we're going to get underneath the car and take off that undercarriage cover. There's going to be a lot of 10 millimeters, but this whole plastic piece underneath, there's a bunch of hardware to take out. There's some in the back too, so. Okay, now that we're under the car, got the undercarriage out. This is the oil pan. You want to make sure the car's cooled down, unless you want to burn yourself or just want to risk it for the biscuit, but mine's a little bit warm, so it might tingle a little bit. This is a 14 mil, so you want to loosen that. Don't take it all the way out right away. Just want to loosen it. So make sure it's nice and firm on there. See, broke it loose. Then you want to do by hand. Obviously adjust the oil pan as necessary, and it should come out. Make sure you keep the O-ring. Don't want to lose it. I did splash a little bit of oil all over there. That's not good. But yeah, you want to make sure you keep this O-ring. That's on there. Otherwise, it's going to leak. So we're going to just wait a little bit for it to drain. As you can see, it's very dark and it smells burnt. So it's a little bit overdue, you could say. So I'm gonna let this drain out for some time, and then we'll put the cap back on. Okay, so now that the oil is kind of slowed down a little bit, we can put this back on. Make sure, again, O-ring's on there. Wipe it down with the rag. Want to tighten it back up. Don't go too crazy, otherwise you will break it, and then you're screwed and needing a new oil. You don't want to go too crazy on it. So right now, oil the catch, we're reading about 4 quarts. It does take 5.5. That's reason being is because we didn't let it keep going, or there's some in the oil filter. So keep that in mind. When we do put new oil in it, we're going to start by putting in that 4-ish. We're probably going to put 5 in right now, and then start the engine up, let it run a little bit, then shut it off, let the oil settle, and then check the dipstick, and then we're going to make sure to see if we need to put that extra half, because it should be 5.5 quarts, but there might be still some oil in the engine when I did run it earlier, so it might not totally be 5.5 in my case. But just make sure that the oil is touching the dipstick, otherwise that will be no good. Your engine will run really rough if you do not have enough oil. Okay, so here it's gonna get a little messy on the oil pan. Remember, righty tighty, lefty loosey. We're gonna just slowly release it. This is where you could use the tool if you need to. Mine's actually coming out loose pretty easily, which is kind of concerning, but that's okay because it wasn't leaking before. So just slowly release this. Let this come out a little bit. Again, a little hot, but it's okay. I can live. It ain't gonna kill me. Okay, so to put the new filter on, that O-ring that's already on there, to get some of the old oil and get it around the O-ring just to basically lubricate it so don't damage it. So stick your hand in the pan if you need to lubricate the O-ring a little bit. Then we're gonna put that filter back on. Tighten it as much as you can by hand, and then since it's a K9, you could get a socket that fits that and then just like do another turn, but typically want to do it with one hand, but I'm gonna do two hands to turn that a little extra, and then that's it. Nice and done. And then of course, properly dispose the oil. You could take it, put it in a jug or something, and then take it to your local auto parts store that will take the used oil and they'll dump it for you. Okay, so now that you properly disposed of the oil, I'm going to take this cap off. Right, tight, lefty, loosey. Take that out. Put a funnel in, just in case. Then we're going to put 5 quarts in. And let's see. Let's start. Well, we'll first put the 5 quarts in. Let it settle a little bit. I'm going to check the dipstick. And if it's just barely in range of where, it's supposed to be at, I'll start it up to, move all the extra oil that may be in the car, and, mix the old and the new, make sure nice and smooth mixture, and then I'll shut the car off, and then while I put everything back together, let it settle, all of that stuff, and then drop the car back down, and then I'll top off with if I need any more. Okay, so this is the oil that I have. It's Mobile One. You want to make sure when you get the oil, make sure you get the right one, 5W30. Branding doesn't really matter as long as you stay pretty consistent, just in case there is a difference in them. I'm currently using the Extend Performance, protects for 20,000 miles, guaranteed, as they say. Advanced Full Synthetic. Again, doesn't necessarily what brand you use, just make sure that you use 5W30, and then you stay consistent for when you do the next oil change and whatnot. So I'm going to pour this guy in now, and this is 5 quarts. Alright, since now that's in, I'm going to let it sit for a little bit, just to make sure everything gets in there, and obviously there's no leaks underneath. And then check the dipstick to see if I'm somewhat in range to start the engine up. Otherwise, I'll add a little bit more. And then continue on with starting it up, letting it run a little bit, and then shutting off. And then while all is settling, put everything back together underneath the car, and then lower it back down, and then check again. So put everything underneath back on. Just check the dipstick a couple times, and it is full. Entirely. So, I mean, it makes sense because the amount that actually came out of the oil pan was 5 quarts, including the oil filter. So, put 5 back in, and now it's matching up. So, looks like I didn't need 5.5, but just keep in mind it's 5.5 quarts. It's listed as 5.5, but make sure you want to go off the dipstick. Yes, you want to go off of what the manual says, and the owner manual, repair manual, what the dealership recommends, what Lexus recommends, all that good stuff, but you need to make sure that's like ideal scenario for all the SC430s. There's going to be variation on all the SC430s. Nothing is made exactly alike, right? So my case ended up being 5 quarts. For you, it might be 5 quarts. Maybe it's 5.5, right? So just keep an eye on that. So right now I'm just going to lower it down, take the jacks out, things like that. Then do one more check just to be sure. But other than that, that's pretty much how you do your oil change. Remember to make sure you throw away the oil appropriately. Don't just dump it or throw it in the trash. Other than that, thank you guys for watching, and I hope to see you guys in the next video.